New make spirit from Speyside's Mortlach distillery was filled into an oak cask on the 15th of October 1938 on the order of John Urquhart, the grandfather of the current managing directors of Gordon and MacPhail. At this time, the company was laying down whisky for maturing longer than most and bottling it as single malt when blend was more fashionable. Since its founding in 1895, Gordon and MacPhail has filled new make spirit into casks at the majority of Scotland's distilleries. Today, the family-owned firm is known the world over as the custodian of some of the oldest and rarest single malts available. This particular cask, a Spanish oak ex-bodega sherry hogshead, was stowed and nurtured by Gordon and MacPhail for 70 years. Only then was the decision taken to carefully empty and bottle the precious contents. Due to the length of time that it spent maturing in the cask, this Speyside malt is believed to be the oldest single malt Scotch whisky ever bottled. Gordon and MacPhail was founded by James Gordon and John Alexander MacPhail and has been trading from Elgin in the northeast of Scotland for 115 years. John Urquhart joined the firm in its first year, and his family has been involved with the business ever since. Members of the third generation of the Urquhart family now own and manage the company.
On the 24th of May 1895, Gordon MacPhail was established here in Elgin in the northeast of Scotland. The two original partners, James Gordon and Alexander MacPhail, were joined in the first year of trading by a young apprentice, John Urquhart, my grandfather. He worked principally with James Gordon on the whisky side of the business, filling whisky from distilleries throughout Speyside into casks that they'd selected, and to bottle these either as a blend or as a single malt whisky. MacPhail retired in the early 1900s, and James Gordon became a partner with my grandfather. But that partnership only lasted 2 weeks. James Gordon took a heart attack and died when he was driving his car in Elgin, and my grandfather then became senior partner, and it's been in the Urquhart family ever since then. One of the distilleries that they filled from was Mortlach Distillery in Dufftown, and this cask was laid down to the order of my grandfather on the 15th of October 1938, and it's been in our ownership ever since that date. The aging of whisky is determined by the length of time it is in cask. There are some whiskies around today that have been in bottle for a long time, maybe up to 100 years. But this whisky is unique because it has been aged in the same cask for 70 years, and that's what makes this whisky unique. It is the oldest single malt whisky, aged whisky that is in bottle in the world. So that's what makes it so unique. Gordon MacPhail are well known and recognised as having a unique range of aged single malt whiskies. When this cask reached its 70th birthday, we decided to go and bottle it because it showed the unique qualities that we were looking for. And indeed, it's been bottled at 46.1%, its natural cask strength. And then this demonstrates the fact that it's been matured in an exceptionally good cask to hold the strength for to that level for that period of time. Gordon MacPhail over the years have been bottling whiskies under a number of different ranges. There must be about 12 different ranges that we bottle under. But this is a new range, Gordon MacPhail Generations. And it's to signify the fact that this is whiskies that have been laid down by one generation and bottled by the next, or possibly the next again generation. This whisky was laid down by John Urquhart, my grandfather, and bottled by in my generation. I'm the part of the third generation to own and run the business. And we have members of the fourth generation working in the business as well. So we're actually going from 2 to 3 generations of a gap between when the whisky was laid down and when it was bottled. There'll be 54 large decanters and 162 smaller decanters. The smaller decanter is an exact replica of the large size decanter, but we felt it was important to make sure that we extended the reach of the affordability of this unique whisky so that people can go and experience this outstanding and unique experience, the oldest single malt Scotch whisky in the world. For the large size decanter, it'll be £10,000 per decanter, and for the smaller size, it'll be £2,500 per decanter. That's the UK suggested retail price. Prices in other overseas markets will vary depending on taxes and currency exchange rates. There'll be a variety of different people that go and buy this unique whisky. For the large size decanter, there'll be people who want to go and buy it and add it to their collection. But there'll also be people who want to go and buy it to share with their friends and family, and on special occasions to go and enjoy such a unique whisky, the oldest single malt Scotch whisky in the world. The small size decanter will also be of interest to people that want to go and experience the taste of such a unique whisky, the oldest single malt Scotch whisky in bottle in the world. And it is an opportunity that many will want to go and grasp, just to have the pleasure of enjoying such a fantastic whisky.
Each decanter of Mortlach 70 years old is individually hand-finished to exacting standards. Every one is made from hand-blown crystal, which nestles in a silver base and is topped with a silver stopper. Once filled with whisky, the decanter is carefully placed inside a Brazilian rosewood presentation case made from sustainably grown sources. Completing the presentation is a certificate signed by the managing directors and a book conveying the history of Gordon and MacPhail and this exceptional single malt.
Well, this is going back to my grandfather's day, and basically in those days we used to bottle our own sherry, and the first class casks that came across from Spain was never put to waste because they would have actually physically put it straight back into operation with whisky going in it from one of the finest distilleries in Speyside.
And I'm right in saying, David, this was first full sherry cask from Jerez, and my great-grandfather, your grandfather, John, would have laid it down a bit. He would have had long-term relationships with these sherry houses.
Absolutely. You know, this is something in history. The relationship went back, it was all back to families. In those days, you know, there's not big companies as there are today. There was all family companies who all worked together.
But, you know, this has been bottled, David, at 46.1. That's testament to the quality of the cask.
Absolutely, and it's for us taking the heritage further by continuing what both my father and grandfather did and being the pioneers of overaging malt whisky, and this is just a classic.
But it's such a beautiful colour, that sort of dark amber, sort of almost mahogany. Such a clarity to it.
Oh.
And what, the nose.
Fantastic.
What do you get? I'm picking up nice waxy notes.
Maxi, you've got a bit of maraschino, you've got...
Yeah, the maraschino manifesting almost into sort of almond and almost a bit of nuts, other nuts.
Fruitcake.
Yeah.
Absolute Madeira coming through. A bit of oiliness.
So David, back in 1938, how important was it for John to select the right cask for the style of spirit being produced up in Mortlach?
I think it is very key. I mean, quality was the key thing. Again, they would have been privileged in getting casks coming in from Spain because of the relationship they had with the Bodegos out there in bottling sherry in Scotland, and they would put nothing to waste, but they would be looking at the quality of the cask to make sure that if something's going to be laid down then for 70 years, the quality of the wood had to be critical going forward.
And what's really interesting on the nose, that quality really comes through in that the input from the wood balanced with the spirit is just divine.
Well, basically it's very mellow. I mean, it's young, it's sort of very fresh coming through, and it's lively, but saying that, it's lovely and mellow. You get sort of fruitcake, Madeira was malted, and it could have been possibly a very cold day that they just needed a bit more peat to dry the malted barley.
Oh, and on the palate?
Just lovely and soft. Richness coming through.
I'm getting the maraschino cherries and almond notes coming through.
There's a bit of an orangey zest coming through as well. But delicious.
Yeah, and figs, and it's beautiful the way it coats your mouth, and that lovely waxy texture it brings. And mind you, 46.1% alcohol, that's extremely rare for a cask of this age.
Absolutely. I mean, that is amazing for that age of product to be well above strength.
And the finish goes on and on and on, which is a great sign for a whisky, just lingering with you.
Absolutely. I hope I'm as fresh as that as when I'm 70 years old.
Here's to that.
Growing from strong local roots to an award-winning company exporting to more than 40 countries, Gordon and MacPhail is a homegrown Scottish success story. And with the launch of rare and special whiskies such as Mortlach 70 years old, the company plans to build on this success for generations to come.
Today we're here at Edinburgh Castle on the 70th day of the year to go and launch an exciting and unique new whisky. Bottled under the range of Gordon MacPhail Generations, this whisky was distilled at Mortlach Distillery and bottled when it was 70 years old. An absolutely fantastic occasion for us today. Part of Scotland's liquid history being unveiled in Edinburgh Castle, which is really part of Scotland's heritage going back many, many, many decades.
I think the significance of what warrants being here today in Edinburgh Castle and the celebration we've organised today is just the utter uniqueness of this whisky. It is the oldest whisky ever to be bottled. It's completely unique in the world, and it's one that reflects what we do as Gordon MacPhail, and what we've done for many, many years of aging whiskies, buying them in new spirit from the distillery and then aging them in our own casks for what is a lot older than the average industry norm for aging of whiskies.
We're absolutely chuffed, really, really chuffed. It's to go and have a whisky that's been laid down by one generation and bottled by 2 generations thereafter. Maybe 3 generations, because we have members of the 4th generation working in the business as well. So it really is quite a unique, special feeling, and one that we're incredibly proud of. Go and see the launch of Gordon MacPhail's Generations, the first bottling under this range from Mortlach Distillery, still back in 1938. And the whisky is just so youthful and fruity, and we're absolutely thrilled and delighted. We monitor our whiskies very closely to make sure that they don't fall below the strength of Scotch whisky of 40%. But we're also looking, we select the cask to go and look for that longer term maturation.
It was filled into this cask behind us, which is an ex-sherry cask made from European oak, a hogshead holding 250 litres. The cask performs miracles in developing the flavour of any whisky. If the cask is very active, really in quite a short period of time, 20 years let's say, the flavours are completely dominated by the wood. Now this has not been too active, which means that the spirit and the wood have interreacted beautifully over this long, long period of time. Well, I feel immensely privileged to be able to taste it. But I mean, my first impression on the nose was candle wax. Behind that, a sort of dry smokiness, sort of peat smoke, it's a fragrant smoke. And then we start getting fruits, and they're like maraschino cherries, like cherry cake possibly. There's some almonds there, and then below that there's a freshness, a zestiness, which I just think of as orange peel, or perhaps dried orange. No, fresh orange peel. Layers and layers and layers and layers. And in the mouth, again, it's got this slightly chewy, waxy teeth coating, as they call it. Sweet to start, big sweetness, covers the whole palate, and then drying elegantly. Long, 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 long warming finish. I mean, it's a superb whisky.
We were looking for a unique, very eye-catching shape of decanter to go and show off the colour of the whisky. We've kept this secret for a long time. There will be 54 bottles of normal-sized bottles, and 162 20cl bottles will be available. For the 20 centilitre, it'll be the suggested UK retail.